All right, everyone, welcome to the first, the kickoff for the Technical Steering Committee of the Baseline Protocol community. I'm really excited to see everybody here. It's a great team. I'd like to introduce JORY BURSON, who is our Oasis. JORY, you have a thing that we convener or
well,
secretariat?
I'm the program manager for the Open Projects program, but I think y'all can probably think of me more like your concierge for your community. And I work for Oasis. I'm here to help you make sure that you have all the resources that you need, and also to make sure that we're abiding by the governance set out and in our open standards organization so that everybody has a seat at the table.
Thanks, Jory. I did put together a workflowy. If anybody has violent reactions to workflowy or can't get on it, it seems to be the lowest barrier I have to putting together agendas usually, and they're easy to share. Does anybody have any issues with workflowy as an agenda tool? Got it. And by the way, thanks for demonstrating my favorite thing, Eric, which is chat. Nothing better than a good chat log at the end of a meeting like this, and it helps with blocking. So I hope everybody utilizes that. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 12, 13, 14 folks on call. We have a couple of guests. I see that Joe LUBIN is here, and Dan Burnett, and I think, yeah, those are the two. So everybody else is a member of the TSC, and we have a couple of guests. This is a public, this will be publicly recorded and publicly distributed on our YouTube channel. Jory, that's correct, right? So we can do that. If there are any discussions that someone feels strongly about not being public, that might not be the best forum for it, because transparency is essential. We didn't make it public. I didn't invite the public to the meeting for obvious logistical reasons, but we will make it public hereafter. Okay, so short introductions. Just name, company, role, and a brief intention. That is, what do you intend to get out of this? There's a big principle that we've asked everybody to consider coming in here, which is don't do any work for this unless you can draw a straight line between what you're doing and your avarice, or what's going to be good for your company. So enlightened self-interest is essential for maintenance of the community over time. So it'd be great to say a line or two about what your intentions are. What do you want to get out of this? I'll go through. I'll just make it easy by walking through the tiles I have on screen here. So Eric, you're on top. You want to say a few words?
Sure, absolutely. Eric BRAVICK, I'm CTO of Core Convergence. I think I want to get a couple of things out of this. I'm just in love with the open source process in general, and I like sitting on this type of organizational structure just to keep in tune with that. More directly, I do a lot of work in the security community, and I'd like to see Baseline rolled out along some use cases specifically in that security community. And I think it has a good place in some use cases and some products that I'm thinking about. So that'll be my first vector on this is security.
Thank you, Eric. Let's see who's next here. Nate.
Yep, Nate MCKERVEY from Splunk. I lead our blockchain and DLT efforts at Splunk, and we're excited about Baseline for multiple reasons. But at Splunk, we believe that every problem is a data problem. And this technology is going to allow enterprises to share data in a better way, and have that, we agree upon this baseline. And so that is a big opportunity for enterprises to be more efficient, transparent, and it's all based on data. So we want to make that easier for everybody. Right now, how enterprises come to agreements, it's pretty ridiculous. Everybody knows that. And so this is Splunk's a data company, and this is going to generate some very valuable data.
Thanks, Nate. Zach, you're next.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Zach. I'm the CTO of Aztec. We're a privacy protocol for Ethereum, and we develop snark-based privacy solutions, and we're we're looking to baseline as an avenue for commercial adoption of our zero-knowledge proving technologies, of our snark technology, and we're just very excited about the baseline project because we think it has great prospects for the programmable privacy on mainnet.
Thanks, Zach. Connor?
Hey everyone, Connor SVENSSON, founder and CEO of Web3 Labs. Apologies, there's building work happening in the house at the moment as well, which doesn't bode well for everything else. But anyway, yeah. So baseline, we've been involved in the Ethereum space for a long time. It started off with Web3J, the JVM integration library for Ethereum, and we're really kind of building upon a lot of the work we've done in the last few years with the focus on our Epirus platform, which really is an on-ramp for developers and like ops teams and so on to get working with blockchain-based technology as easily as possible. We're about to launch a significant offer that just removes a lot of the barriers and is very much so focused on getting people developing on top of public Ethereum networks. Hence, there's a really nice synergy there when we're talking enterprise with baseline and having a route and compelling business use cases for them to actually interact with them, because we really believe in adding value for really SMEs and business to get them on board. There's a lot of people doing great work getting developers on board, but we think we can do more to help get more businesses on top, and baseline slots really nicely into that.
Right on. Thanks, Connor. Stefan?
Yep. Hello, everybody. This is Stefan, CTO of Unibright, a German company, a blockchain integrator. So what we are doing is bringing enterprises closer to blockchain. And that's also why we are so excited about the baseline protocol, because we think it may be one, if not the missing link for enterprise adoption. So what we are doing, we're offering a visual, no coding platform where you can visually define business processes, generate code out of it, and automatically integrate it into off-chain systems. And so our idea of baseline is, of course, contributing to the public source, open source protocol, and at the same time developing our products alongside it.
Thanks, Stefan, and well done on those. I think you took first blood on producing content that wasn't from the original three companies, so well done on that. Kyle, you also get, I should say, first blood on code contribution, I think. So.
Oh, there we go. Thanks, John. Kyle Thomas, founder and CEO of Provide. I built Provide to blockchain enable organizations, basically with a developer platform. I hate the word platform. Call it a launch pad, really. It's got infrastructure APIs for AWS and Azure. It's got sort of core blockchain APIs where you can Web3ify your existing legacy systems. And I've been basically working on a product called Shuttle that's built on top of that. And we found that enterprises didn't quite understand how to take advantage of blockchain, so we were early. So we've basically been building on top of our own platform a product called Shuttle that leverages a lot of those APIs. And really, I see the vision here for being able to baseline the baseline protocol, essentially, in terms of adoption and really getting early adopters going with experiments on Shuttle. So it's been great to meet some of you guys already. Look forward to working with everyone.
Right on. Thanks, Kyle. Hudson, you're next.
Hey everyone, I'm Hudson Jameson. I do security and community liaison work with the Ethereum Foundation, and I'm really getting more and more excited each meeting with the main networking group, and definitely going to get excited with these meetings because there's kind of been this rift and this distaste for enterprise within the Ethereum core community and within like the open source contributors to like Geth and other platforms like that, some within and outside the Ethereum Foundation. So people were skeptical, but now that we're moving toward working on mainnet, I think that that can change. And I see a future, hopefully, where a lot of the more crypto anarcho leaning people kind of realize that we need something like baseline for enterprise adoption of mainnet protocols, because otherwise we're not going to get as big as we need to. As a whole platform, as Ethereum. So yeah, I'm just hoping that things go well on this. I'm happy to be contributing on the steering committee.
Thanks, Hudson. And we're very glad that you're here. It's hard to imagine having an impact with what we're doing without a real connection to the Ethereum development community. Johan, Johan, are you there?
Hey guys, yeah, I'm there. Yeah. Hey, nice to see everyone. Really good to have this first call. So I work at Chainlink, mostly on the product management and kind of, providing Ethereum applications, real-world data. So for Chainlink, baseline protocol and the support we're bringing makes, seems like a no-brainer because our whole vision is bridging the Ethereum ecosystem and kind of the blockchain ecosystem to enterprises, to real-world use cases, right? So baseline is kind of a step, and I think a huge step towards bridging that gap. And for Chainlink, we're super excited about the work being done here. Same every meeting we have, and kind of every time we speak together, I think we'll have the same vision driving us, and I think this could be the beginning of some great stuff. So yeah, happy to be there. And,
It sounds like we got a pretty good block forming right around data and integration with your competencies in Chainlink, which are obvious, and some of the other folks on the call. Right, Karthik, I think you're next. My tiles shuffled themselves, so not yeah. Karthik.
Yep. Hello everyone. This is Karthik Solapuram representing EY. Play the role of solution architect and researcher at EY. Been one of the original authors of the baseline protocol and the Radish demo. Looking forward to get further adoption on this. My particular focus, or particular area of interest would be the ZK SNARK technologies and scalability of baseline towards more adoption in the Ethereum community, as well as how we can scale this further to be adopted beyond Ethereum 1.0.
Brian?
Hi, Brian Chamberlain, engineer at Consensus, also one of the core developers of the baseline project to date. Worked on a lot of the messaging and architecture and sort of some of the protocol design for the system in the code base as it stands. Looking forward to meeting everyone in the community and getting good feedback and looking for applications for this technology in different industries. Particularly interested in building a more modular system and and composing an architecture that scales.
Thanks, Brian. I'd like to say that Brian and Karthik are probably crucial resources for the short term, in that they say, I'm trying to teach my 6-year-old daughter, good leadership is good listening. So listening to what we've already done, and then taking it from there is a good way for us to make sure that we can maintain alignment and find our focal points as a community. We can fast take things in new directions, but Karthik and Brian know the most about what the journey has been up until now. So I'd encourage you to avail yourself of their time as they can afford it.
We have Slack in the. We have a new dev channel we're going to create, so there's a lot of developer specific stuff.
Right on. And we'll go into tools in a bit too to go further into that. We have 3 guests. So just briefly, we have York Rhodes now and Joseph Lubin, and we have Dan Burnett. Dan, would you like to start? You're a member of the PGB, so maybe you could give a brief mention of that.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was going to say. I do standards with Consensus, and I'm on the project governing board for the Oasis Ethereum Open Project. We're very excited to have this particular project within that group, the Baseline project, because it's really just the interest in it is phenomenal, and I think it fits right squarely in the bailiwick of the Ethereum project at Oasis. So thank you all. I'm mainly just going to be listening in, but I'm looking forward to a lot of great success here.
Thanks, Dan. And as the person who probably knows more about standards work than many of us, including myself, please check our six if we misstep anywhere in this call. Joe?
Hi, Joe Lubin from Consensus. We've been bringing any kind of interested party to the Ethereum technology since POC 0.5 before mainnet was launched. We have been particularly interested in bringing enterprise to the use of the technology and eventually to the use of mainnet, and Baseline represents a potential breakthrough for that.
Thanks, Joe. And York, I'm pretty sure York has ceased to exist in the physical plane, and because the last few times he's very digitized. So
I'm working on
digital York. Would you like to?
All my digital skills are coming through.
This is what happens with quantum computing meets AI, right? This is.
So I'd like to actually call out my key collaborator and who I also refer to as a mentor, Joe Lubin, who I've worked with closely since 2015. So as he will readily reply, probably my enterprise education of his positioning of Ethereum has been critical as well. But it's an amazing journey, and I'm really happy to see this particular part of this journey, because I think this is a sort of critical spot and also a critical need. So welcome everyone.
Thanks, York. I'm John Wolpert. I'm your convener and provisional chair until we get out of bootstrapping mode, at which point hopefully I'll be voted out. My personal interest in this is, well, this is I think I'm the only person, at least senior person, whose day job is nothing but this. I say that winking at my boss Joe there, to say, I eat, sleep, and drink, making sure that the community gets running under its own power in a good way. And so I'm at your service for this and this alone. The reason, our intention here is that, as Joe said, this is a real opportunity to activate all sorts of products and things that other parts of the company I work for, Consensus, is doing, and so we got to get this right so that we can get those products right and find a path to great products enabled by the method. So I work closely with a guy named Nick Kritikos, who is actively looking for product opportunities. That's the introduction phase. Thanks, everybody. Looking at the agenda. I think I've already mentioned that we want to contribute based on enlightened self-interest. So I'd encourage everybody to continue to think about that, articulate it to the community, and encourage others to do the same. Status. So brief recap of current impact. As of now, I haven't checked in the last few hours. We might have just passed it, but this morning at about 4 a.m., we were at 180 stars, 35 forks, and committers jumping on all the time. After 6 months as a benchmark, and this is by no means a haha, we got we love our brothers and sisters at Hyperledger, Besu, but Besu's been running for 6 months. They have 185 stars, and about 100 or so forks. This is 72 hours in that we're talking about, 4 days, or it's 4 days. If we keep up that kind of pace, we're going to be surpassing Fabric and other things soon enough. And that's a heck of a community. It strikes me that we suddenly have an army, and we need to organize that army in a decentralized way. Everybody has already seen the details on the press release. We got 1.2 billion in reach, 11 million in advertising equivalents. I haven't seen that kind of thing in a long time, maybe ever. I'm not sure. Metric, yeah. So one of the things that we should be looking at, and I don't have an answer to this right now, is what are our metrics? What do we want to keep an eye on? What matters? Nate, you guys are great at analysis and finding the important things out of the data. So maybe that's something you can advise us on in future meetings. Say, how do we figure out what signal is? When I was a CEO some time ago, a board member taught me this. He said, "You're going to keep your job as long as we think that you're looking at the right things. You could be winning, you could be losing, but as long as if you could be winning, and if we think you're looking at the wrong things, you're going to be out of a job anyway." I thought that was a very important way of looking at things. So what should we be looking at as a steering committee seems to be an important concept. I'd like to go through tools very quickly. We are going to be heavy users of Slack. Does anybody have any concerns about that? Is everybody able to get on from their corporate environments to the Slack channel? Has everybody been properly invited, or do they need us to invite their alternative email address, for example?
I just have a question about that. Is this a paid-for version of Slack, or are we going to have the scroll back monster eat us after 10,000 messages?
Currently, we've got scroll back monster. JORY, you have a point?
I was going to say we'll be working to get the paid version of Slack, and I also wanted to share that there's an auto inviter, so you can share that with colleagues, not necessarily have to do the step of asking to invite someone.
Right. If you go to the website, one of the only couple of links on there, it's a pretty simple site right now. We'll get you that inviter. I haven't looked recent. Go ahead.
I was just going to say our experience with Slack, even for community, they are not very good for pricing, even for very community-oriented use cases. So it may, I don't know if anyone's been through this rodeo before, but it can be quite the challenge. I love Slack. We use it, but it is very difficult and expensive for communities.
Yeah, fair point.
So with this whole Slack thing, I think it's cool if the TSC's on it, but for the broader community, like I just looked through the baseline GitHub and we're already getting outside contributors who've never even heard of baseline before, like Wejo Key and Eva Balin and others. So a place for them to stop by and ask questions would be cool. Do we have something like that right now? Because I have a proposition if we don't.
Fire away with your proposition.
So basically right now, what I do when someone has like a new initiative, like we have something to, update the EIP process, for example, what we do is we set up a Telegram channel and a Gitter channel, and then we bridge them using a software called MatterBridge. So basically you can go in and make it so that when someone talks on the Gitter side, it goes to Telegram and vice versa. So I think that would probably be a good first step, unless someone has a better idea for a first step. And it also kind of seems a little more organic that way, in my opinion, because it's not something that's like Slack's like very enterprise and paid for and that kind of stuff.
So Hudson, can I ask really quick to better understand the problem to solve here? We want to make sure that folks who are asking questions on GitHub are getting the attention in a Slack channel, in some kind of chat channel, of the people who may be able to solve that problem. Is that the problem?
Yeah, it's like to ask questions and get real-time feedback, but also to build a community around it. So you kind of have these real-time chat channels rather than just the GitHub issues and PRs, which is purely for technical stuff, to like brainstorm with the community what good next steps are. GitHub's not built for that. It's purely, I mean, you can make GitHub built for that. There are new tools in like a projects board and stuff like that, but I think it's better to have some kind of, just like all the other projects in the space have Gitter, Telegram, and also Discord. I think Eric just wrote Discord is a good one too, and we can bridge to that as well. So basically you have one channel that goes over 3 chat platforms, and when you write in one, it goes to all the others, so it makes it easy for people to jump in.
Yeah, and I'll agree that certainly Telegram is a great community generation tool and interaction tool.
Yeah, and I can definitely set that up if there's anyone who's interested in getting that together, but I do want to wait and make sure that we have good feedback and we don't jump into it too quickly.
Can I just add discourse as well to the list too, because it's more traditional forum software, but there are like a number of folks who use discourse for their communities, and I think where you've got kind of static questions, it's certainly very useful, so people can almost have getting started, or refer back to things that people have asked time and time again, because of course although historical search is there on a lot of the chat applications, that it's not as good as it's not so good for seeing the historical stuff.
I completely agree, and I love Discourse for the long form stuff. So we would just need someone to spin up a server and get it on there, or they might have a paid version, but it's open source. You can just spin it up.
Yeah, the paid one's not prohibitively expensive if you don't want to do anything too fancy with authentication mechanisms.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. I'm gonna I'll call time on this particular subject if you don't mind. But
sure.
This is excellent. May I propose that Hudson and JORY and I, perhaps, unless anybody else would like to jump in, I'm just calling names. So say, hey, wait a minute, you missed me. Why don't we take an action to do a spike and come back to the team next time with finals. And we'll stick with what we have until then, but then we'll make final determination about channels and modalities. Cool. Obviously, and let's set a principle down, right? There's a dialectic between stuff people already have, making people use stuff they don't already have, getting to people that don't use the stuff that other groups have. And we are living in that age where we have this explosion of channels. So it's a fascinating and interesting problem. I suppose a good one to have, in fact. But it is a problem. So and Reddit obviously would go in there as well. All good. So issues and tasks. So okay. So careful. We have an email distribution list as well. So the two things that we have for now is the Slack and an email distribution list. If anybody's not on that, the TSC, where there's a TSC one, there's an SSC one, there's the general members list, which I think is approaching 400 people. That means, of course, careful use of the email distribution list. And I will argue, I think it's almost QED, JORY, that the TSC, possibly the SSC, but certainly the TSC members would be the one, and it would be ones that get that email that says approve or disapprove.
Yeah, we can definitely make the TSC representatives moderators of the main baseline list.
If anyone does not want that yoke around their neck, let us know. So I get an email, and hopefully won't get a lot of them, right? If we get the community understandings correct, folks will use it. I think that the argument is to use it only for big meeting announcements and things like that, where you need 300, 400 people to know the same thing. Otherwise, Slack and whatever we come up with next. GitHub issues and ZenHub. So this is fairly important. we have a ZenHub account full up, and we have a certain way of using ZenHub that I shall propose now. And if anyone wants to alter that, that's certainly something we can discuss. But just for to get the ball rolling, this is the proposal, and it is that tasks. I'll actually bring up. I didn't have it up. I'll bring it up right now. GitHub. Anybody used? Anybody not used ZenHub before?
I haven't.
It's pretty cool. It has kind of a feature bug combo, which is, or not bug, but it has a data structure, or it has a data. It has a schema where it has a new object called epic, which I wish they didn't call epics, but it is a nestable object, right? So you can create epics within epics within epics within epics, and then put an issue into it. You can't in GitHub, without just doing general references, do an issue within an issue within an issue. And so it makes epics nice for defining topics, creating projects, and then nesting down into them, ultimately down into user stories and tasks or what have you. I would propose that we use GitHub, which is the public repository, for anything that we're doing seriously as an organization. It now has a pretty nice, even Gantt style road mapping tool, which it didn't have before. And you can create a specific project. Like I've got a specifications task force I was just fooling around with, create a new project called TSC organizing, bootstrapping, let's call it. And now we can add epics from here. So I'm going to tell the maintainers and everybody else out there during onboarding sessions that I'll talk about in a minute, that we use issues for basically engineering tasks and to-dos and chores, and those can be written in the format that we have already in the template. So if we go into this is not written as a story, and that's okay because it's an issue. Usually we like to encourage starting with an action verb. So do this, fix that, work on that. And as we get going, most of them, unless they're chores, would be connected to an epic, which you can create in the standard GitHub area. And you can change it to an epic, or you can embed it in another epic. So test and create that epic. And then we can put any number of issues within that epic or other epics within that epic. So that's nice. That's all I want to say about that. I want to give a quick primer on it and make sure that everybody understands the baseline here is use epics for anything above a task. So if you have a user story or Joe needs this so that he can do that, which is the best way to write a story, right? A needs B so that C. And the so that being the most important part. That all gets plugged into epics. So you can have a story that sits within a topic. And I expect that the SSC will start having big project level topics or epics called vertical industry X, vertical industry Y, and that sort of thing. And then we'll use that for specifications as well. So you can use epics to specify, to say, thing must have messaging that does this. Messaging must have, or shall have, or must not have. So we can use that to define our specifications, which Connor, I thought you might like as a method. Do you have any thoughts about this?
I think it's certainly with regards to the specification approaches, and Dan Burnett, of course, can talk very extensively about this. But using the must, should, and may is certainly helpful for doing this.
Right on. So we have topics, which can go into specs, can go into requirements, which are not the same. And from there down into NFRs, functional, non-functional, and then down into tasks, issues. So ideally, every task would be connected to, actually I missed some steps here, stories. Would be connected to a story that has a so that. Usually that doesn't wind up happening, especially in a big community effort. Gets a little messy, but I'll try to be vigilant on that. And anybody that's interested in helping out there, that'd be great. Any questions on that?
I had one in chat real quick, but I think it got answered by JORY. It was just that how easy is it for a community member who's contributing to sign up for this? And like just skimming through the docs, it looks like it's real easy.
It's super easy and it's automatic. So JORY has set it up so that ZenHub pops for anybody that's on a browser.
Great.
You can also get the Chrome plugin, but you don't have, it's not a private repo, so you don't have to buy it. It's free for public. Is that correct, JORY?
I'm so sorry. My husband just had to ask me a question. Would you please repeat that?
Well, not at all. And we all understand very much. It's going to happen to all of us. The question was, do we have so ZenHub is free for everybody, right?
Yeah, we're an open source project, and ZenHub provides for nonprofits doing open source, provides resources. So thank you, ZenHub.
Right. One pro tip there is that the epic object in ZenHub is not in GitHub. There is no object. There's nothing to contain that object in GitHub. So when you're doing ZenHub, and that actually has some nice features to it, because not having it in GitHub means you're not cluttering up GitHub with that necessarily from the engineering perspective. You can use it for a lot of good project management and that sort of thing. So I'll move on from there. We're going to review governance next, and we have an action item really, which is to the only real big action item for today is to seed the maintainers with folks. We will follow this up next time with another round of this, because the ask for everyone is to go and find maintainers. Make sure that you've got a good set of maintainers, and that I've made a call to action for the community to step up to be maintainers, but I don't think that they've had the time or opportunity to really absorb that call to action. So we'll give them one more round. Once we've done these 2 meetings on this, the maintainers will add more maintainers. So I'll go over to the governance document. Has anybody not seen the governance document? Anybody not seen this? Has anybody not been able to go onto the docs.baseline-protocol.org? If you haven't, do that. We've spent a good amount of time. I think it's a work in progress, but I think it's got some good stuff. Got our community members here, and we have governance here. And in that we have, this is the official, I guess the official version, JORY, right? At least it should be.
Yes, it should be.
We'll maintain that here so everybody can see it. And there are just a few basic rules. One is that we will determine the initial maintainers and the number of maintainers required to merge a contribution. I'd like to open that question right now, which is we have initially set it to 3 by default. And I would think it would be a very appropriate thing for somebody to say, are you crazy? It should be 2 or what have you. So does anybody, I'll start the bidding. Anybody feel that that needs to go down or up? Arguments?
Just to comment that the rationale here was that this was the minimum number. We can always require, we can always request or suggest more, but this is essentially what would be enforced.
Correct.
By GitHub.
That's right. And I think in general, good practice would suggest no fewer than 2, right? But we can go down to 2 or we could go up.
My concern is that if someone is going to the, zero knowledge part of the repo and submitting a change, because that's actually one of the issues pulled up right now, do we have people like in this steering committee who have an expertise in that who'd be able to review that, like if they do a pull request on this?
That is a really good question. And it speaks to an interesting issue we had with the docs as well. We had a docs branch. I think we're just going to merge that into master and change the way we do that. But we started with a docs branch that can have its own, settings for that, right? So you're saying,
yeah, if you go to the issue I just posted from Ouija Co, who's an excellent researcher and is doing the semaphore or what's it called? The semaphore like initiation process. Basically, there's a problem with something to create. Yeah, I can't even describe it, and that's the problem.
Right.
So Hudson, the maintainers don't actually have to be experts, but they do have to know who the experts are, right? So if they themselves are not experts, as long as they are able to reach out to a sufficiently broad number of other experts to review, then the maintainer's job is to watch the conversation and see if there is agreement among those who are experts.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, I just like to chime in. I can also review zero knowledge.
Oh yeah, Zach, you're on the call. Yeah.
Yeah.
Aztec's
badass, so yeah, I'm sure you can.
Yeah, with Brian here, one of the we talked about but we haven't implemented yet, which we could, or leave it kind of open, is obviously, so GitHub provides the ability to flag or require certain reviewers on certain areas of the code base or certain libraries or file types, that kind of thing. You could potentially do something like that to ensure someone with technical knowledge reviews it, but we didn't add that in yet. We can discuss if that's something we think is valuable.
Okay, well that question is solved for me. I'm good.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, why don't we start with the simplest version of that, which is we teach maintainers how to be maintainers in onboarding sessions, which is something I'll mention in a few minutes. And principle number 1 for the maintainers is this one right here. Don't need to be expert, need to be good listeners, need to be good at, enabling the community to do its job, right? So yeah, if Brian is maintaining and it's something on ZK, he can do the merge, but he might want to call Zach, right? That sort of thing. Shall we keep it at that simplicity level, or shall we do a spike on figuring out how to do accommodations?
I think that sounds good for now.
Yeah, I was going to say people tend to use their common sense as well when it comes to reviewing pull requests. If it's kind of, if they're out of depth, then I think they'll try to pull someone in. Okay.
So I've got one action here, or one ask of the group, and that is, maintainers, people with the ability to merge, they have a crucial role in terms of focus and not turning this into blockchain porridge, which is what we worried about a few projects I've been involved with. So, there's this loose type
blockchain, what, John?
Blockchain porridge, right? Or blockchain soup, it just becomes a mess.
Okay.
there's this balance between, going out too soon, too late, and you never know if you got it right until after the fact. We've got just enough code that people seem to understand, and enough articulation that people get the general idea. And now, the question is, will we all run amok, or will we come together into some kind of focused activity? And the maintainers have a crucial role in this. So what I'd like to propose is that 1 or 2 or 3 people have take the responsibility of doing an actual onboarding session for every new maintainer, where they take them through things like, don't have to be an expert, here's how you do this. And we have some experts about being maintainers on this call. So who'd like to step up and take that ask?
Hey, this is Brian. I mean, I'm interested. I'd like to think about that as a process for onboarding new maintainers for a little bit, and then come up with what we think we might want that experience to be like, before committing to, to doing it, and maybe bring it back to the community.
Yeah, I second that, and calling me interested.
Do we need it to be an actual session, or can we have guidelines and ask people to review guidelines?
Guidelines can help us quite a bit, and again, there's machinery in GitHub that can kind of reinforce that. And then with whatever chat platform we're on, we can start to do that. So it could be kind of a community where we all are, as long as we're all on the same page about what the guidelines are, at least on some loose level. We can all do it, at least in some part, as we interface with new folks who want to contribute. At least that's my initial thought. A video actually is a good idea. I mean, maybe there's a short, less than 5-minute kind of review get put together, but I think that would probably start with in the contributor guide. You see a lot of that language and those concepts kind of framed. The video just might be another way to consume it. And then people come into the forums or chat, then we can link them to the document or the video. Like, could kind of evolve organically. Might be the best way to go.
Terrific. Brian, thanks for stepping up on that. And I know that Karthik probably would want to, but I think in his role with ENY, it's probably wise for him to stay back on that one particular thing. Although I think he'll be an incredibly important resource for folks. So I think maybe one other person might want to be involved on that. Eric, I'm just reading your thing. We understand. I'm sorry that you got the diagnosis. But yeah, I think we can keep it at 2 for now. Does anybody else have any questions, comments, things to add about maintainers and getting into the work? Okay. If no one else does it, I'm going to be doing regular office hours style onboarding sessions for anybody, maintainers or otherwise, who want to, so if anybody wants to jump into the work and get a lay of the land, I'm going to do once or twice a week video taped onboarding sessions using the whiteboard just like this and showing, at least what I know. Others can do the same, can do their own, can help or can jump on and do ride together on them. I will announce the times that I'm doing them. That's just something, again, it's my day job, so I have the time. I'll make the time to do it. It's not everybody's day job, so it may not be for everybody. But if you're interested, reach out to me after the call. We will be doing onboarding sessions of various kinds, and we'll tape them all so that we have a nice video library. Apparently, we have an army of people who are ready to do things like edit our videos. for free. So that's pretty nice.
They are called Link Marines generally.
The Link Marines, you gotta love those guys. You know, they have passion. You know, we just stay out of conversations about cryptocurrency. Right. Mr. Eid, thank you for bringing that community with us. Okay, so that's that. Let me kick back over. Messaging, ZK, special topics. Yeah, so the work ahead, key technical topics, messaging, zero knowledge, integration and data, and then special topics like ensuring we're not wrong about how we prevent double execution using the baseline proof, which if you've been following along is in the demo, and it's one of the ways that two POs, for example, can't both calculate from the same starting state. You know, that's a big claim. We better be right, and it would probably be good for somebody to spike that. So there's all sorts of work like this. It is not the job of the TSC to be the sole planners of such work, of course, but it is also not verboten that the folks on the TSC work on such things. So as we bootstrap the community, I'd like to encourage everybody to start developing that list for themselves, posing it again right here in GitHub. Be brave. Don't worry about putting stuff in that people might you know, be confused about. And again, if you do it in the epics, you're not really cluttering up the actual GitHub. And yeah, so those I don't want to go into that too much today because we have an hour and this is our kickoff. But I think that this is where a lot of the work's going to happen, and it leads to the other thing we wanted to talk about today, which is ideas for the community organizing itself around the work. I'm gonna call on, you know, Stefan. You have a lot of ideas about this. Johan, you also do. And then we have some real old hands and experts at coordinating and leading groups of people that can't be led. I'll just quickly say that I used to play this game EVE Online years ago, and it was MMORPG, and you know it's I think the foundation of ghosting, because you could just disappear and not do the work, but everything in the game is made by players and there's a lot of drudgery. And I remember seeing a young person coordinating 1,200 people to build a big space station, and getting them to do stuff like mine things for hours and hours, and when they could all just disappear. Well, in a way, it's kind of like that for us. You know, we've got to motivate and help lead a group of people that don't have to do a thing around this. And so there's an art form to that. Does anybody have some thoughts about how we go forward with that? And thanks, Jory, for the time check. Yeah, we'll spend the last 5 minutes on this and then we're done.
Yeah, just a short note, perhaps. I think it's always, especially in the bootstrapping phase, it's very important to know who the audience is. And my feeling is that with all the news that have been made around the baseline launch and the repo going public, that there are clearly two target audiences, those who are really interested in coding stuff and developers, and I think it's quite easy to motivate them in the bootstrapping phase. And there perhaps is another audience that is more interested in the long-term effects that something like a baseline protocol has. And I just want to bring up the idea that it's that it's important not to address the second audience too early, because the expectations are already high. And I think the most valuable input for the bootstrapping phase is to motivate as many developers and code contributors and maintainers as possible to ensure that the transition from Radish to the initial version of the baseline protocol is successful, and then tackle the wider audience perhaps in a second step. It's my feeling that we learned from the experiences of including a public community into development-centric processes.
Thanks, Stefan. Any other thoughts on that? As a practical matter, we have to figure out what kind of meetings, events, and what is the program of activities, and that I think that is the thing to really accomplish this week, even before the next meeting, which we do have to set before the top of this. So very quickly, I'll say, be thinking about things that we can do to create within the next week a starter pack for a program of activities. I've got some ideas, but I'd really like to hear from you guys. And I will take the job of collecting everybody's thoughts and putting it back together. So program of activities. And Hudson, I mean, you know a lot about this. So I'll call you on this.
Sounds good. Okay.
All right. Then the last thing to do is decide when our next meeting should be. Does anybody object to this doing one meeting a week later and then going to 2 weeks and then going to a month as we get into a steady state?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, same here.
All right, so I'll call one next week, and I'll put up JORY and I'll put up one of those things that we did last time.
So will we stick to Mondays for now?
Does anybody object to that? We could just say same bat time, same bat channel next week.
That sounds good to me.
All right, so let it unless reserve the right to change it if there are major reasons why it can't be this time next week. But otherwise, let's assume this time next week. Any parting thoughts, shots, questions, comments?
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John. Great meeting.
Thank you.
Good job, John. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Bye.
See ya.